Hello there, ninth graders. This is Mr. Kashi speaking. We're going to go through this video, and basically what the point of this video is to reteach 9.5, which is on factoring trinomials. Okay, so hopefully we've already corrected the assignment, turned that in, but we want to take another day on 9.5. I know it's been a while, so we just want to review. I created one table that hopefully will help you out when we're talking about which factor is positive and which factor is negative. So basically, you can see when B is negative or positive, and when C is negative or positive, what happens to those factors? Where it'll say both are positive, both are negative. The larger factor is positive or the larger factor is negative. Hopefully, this is something that you guys can use throughout Chapter 9 here, as we're factoring trinomials. I know it helps some students, but it might confuse others. So if you're one of those students, maybe this isn't the route you go. You just stick with your factor table or your factor diamond. Okay, so let's move on to a couple of examples of where you would use that sheet. So obviously these two trinomials look very, very close, but they are going to have different factors. So that's one thing that's hard to understand, where a lot of it's very, very close, but the only difference there is the subtraction of 11x instead of the addition of 11x. And same thing down here for the 7 and the 18. Okay, so this is a situation where that table might help a little bit. Okay, moving on to some examples. Okay. Here what we would do is we would find factors of 27, right? And then we want to find their sum. This would be using the table method. Okay. And factors of 27, but it should actually be negative 27. So we can either go positive 1 and negative 27, or we could go negative 1 and positive 27, or we could do negative 3 and a positive 9, or a positive 3 and a negative 9. And once you go through and do the sums of all those, this would be a negative 26, and this would be a positive 26, and this would be a 6, and this would be a negative 6. After you go through those sums, you find out, well, we have a positive 6 for our B term. That goes right there. And so our two factors would be negative 3 and 9. And so to finish that, to factor that trinomial would be m minus 3 and m plus 9, like that. So that's how you would factor that trinomial using the table method. There's another method that we went through, which is called the diamond method, which I'll show you over here. And we need to, we're going to put negative 18 on top, and we have negative 3. And we have to multiply to negative 18. These two numbers on the sides have to multiply to negative 18, but they have to add to negative 3. And so what I do is I think of the factors of 18 that are 3 away from each other, and that would be 3 and 6. And then I know it needs to be a negative 6 because they have to add to negative 3. And so those would be our two factors, and then we'd write them in factored form as p plus 3 times p minus 6. And what I'd like you to do right now is I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to do these two on your own, and please show me these in class before you move on to the next slide. Alright, hopefully you've had time to practice those. Alright, we're going to move on to one last thing, and that's if we have two variables in our expression. And this is there's a simple way of working around this, and basically that is to forget that the second variable exists for right now. And so then what I'd be doing is I'd be finding factors of 24. That add up to 11. Well, 24, 1 and 24 don't. 2 and 12 Nope, 3 and 8 do though. So 3 and 8, those add up to 11. Okay, and so then what I would do is I'd write that as a factored, in factored form. So I'd have x plus 3, and I'd leave a little space behind the 3, and x plus 8, and I'd leave a little space behind the 8 because we can't forget about that variable that we took out. So that is right behind the 3 and the 8. We just put we'd put a y, and we'd put it back in. So that'd be an example of how you would factor a trinomial that had two different variables in it. Use that same process using either the table method or the diamond method for the practice problem down here below. If you could show me that practice problem as well before you move on, that would be great.